Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum class. I'm your English teacher Zia Hamid. I hope that you're doing well. I welcome you to English grade 11. Students, today we are going to see a student's learning outcome of grade 11 from unit number 2. This is our lecture 4, and today we are going to talk about asking and answering questions when we are reading something. Now, here is our students' learning outcome. Let's read it and let's see how we are going to respond to it. I hope, students, that you are you people like to read a lot. So, in order to be efficient in the English language, you have to be good readers. You have to read a lot and increase your comprehension so that you can respond to the text in a very good way. Now, let's read the student's learning outcome. Now, today we have ask and answer higher order questions to guide or assess reading. And these questions, these higher order questions, when we are reading something or after we have read any passage or anything, any text, we ask questions like, why is the author, the writer, saying this right now? Or, why did the author choose this word, any particular word? And now, this part of the SLO, this chunk will be covered, and then we will talk about that how we read with accurate pronunciation, appropriate pitch, and voice variation suitable for fictional and non-fictional text. It means that when we are reading aloud, let's say we are reading a poem or we are narrating a short story, or for any other purpose, if we are quoting somebody, if we are quoting any fiction or non-fictional text, anything, we need to be good with the pronunciation. We need to read it accordingly, accurately, with a proper voice, the variation in the voice, the ups and downs, with correct pitch, correct order, and also we will take care that how the fiction and non-fiction text will be read out aloud with appropriate kind of variation. For example, if you're reading a prose, you have to read it like a prose, not like a poetry. And if you're reading any poem about any famous poet, then you have to read it with a very good rhythm and a very good appropriate variation. So we will talk about this SLO, this part of the SLO as well. First, we will deal with comprehension, that how we can ask and answer the higher order questions, questions that require your critical thinking and questions that require you to be very much attentive and responsive to the text. Now, this was a breakdown of our students' learning outcome. These two chunks will be covered in today's video lesson. I want you to be very much attentive for this because we are going to see some passages, and right after that, we are going to solve some questions. Now, here's your vertical linkage. This links this SLO with the previous grade students' learning outcome so that you have a very good idea about the continuity of the learning outcome and you can perform better. Now, as we always do in today's brainstorming session, before we begin and before we dive into the lesson today, I need you to think about it. Think about this, that how asking and answering questions improve our comprehension. What do we mean by comprehension? Comprehension is our understanding, our full understanding of the text that we are reading, because we read just for the purpose of comprehension, which means understanding. So, how do you think that asking and answering questions, how does it incorporate and how does it elevate our comprehension skills? Think about it a moment. If you're watching on YouTube, you can pause the video at this point and come up with your answer. Write it down, probably write your points and type in the comment box so that I can see them and I can reply to you for that. Now, let's see how, after reading any kind of text, whether it's fiction, either it's poem, a short story, a novella, a novel, or any kind of fictional text, any fantasy, any fictional novel, and when we are reading any non-fiction text in the form of articles, in the form of journal or any document, how we can read them and ask higher order questions, questions that usually begin with the interrogative words like why, followed by the whole question, how, what if, compare and contrast, evaluate and analyze. Now, when you see questions beginning with these keywords over here, students, then you have to be very much attentive because your critical analysis comes into play now. You have to answer these different variations. This asks you the cause and effect. This is also asking you how this happened, whether it's a fiction or non-fiction. What if things were different? What if this happened? What would be your answer for that? And how do you compare and contrast different situations, different ideas to make your synthesis and to make your answer? Now, you will also see a question that asks you to evaluate any kind of situation or idea that you're reading, and also to give your analysis of that poem or your interpretation about any fictional or non-fictional text. Now, when your questions begin with these kind of keywords, you can say that these are your higher order questions. These are not lower order questions that include just some dates or some knowledge-based questions. These are higher than those questions and they require your full understanding of the text. Only then you can answer these questions and do them correctly. Now, since we are talking about reading, I over here have this passage. Let's read it. This is a very short passage. The old man sat on the porch, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. A gentle breeze ruffled his white hair as he slowly rocked back and forth in the creaky rocking chair. The sun, beginning its descent, cast long shadows across the yard, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. Now that we have read this paragraph, it talks about an old man. Now, all the rest of it is description about the whole scene. This paragraph, this passage is very scenic. It holds details and it also has some implicit and hidden meanings. Now, when you are asked such questions over here, that why did the author choose to describe the old man as fixed on the horizon? And what does this suggest about his thoughts and feelings? Let's go back over here. The old man sat on the porch, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. What do you mean by his eyes were fixed on the horizon? This is a high order question. Why? Because now we are going to analyze it and now we are going to think about it so that we can answer it. Now, students, can you come up with your answer? Now, okay, let me tell you, the word fixed over here, it means he's constantly looking at one direction. He's in a deep thought. He's thinking something really deep, maybe about his life because he's old. He's inspecting over his younger days, or maybe he has some regrets or whatever. You can come up with your answer. This is a very subjective kind of question. Your answers would be different from one another, but that doesn't make it incorrect because you have your own interpretation and opinion. Now, fixed over here means that he was in a very deep thought. This answers this question. What does this suggest about his thoughts or feelings? Maybe he's lost in his thoughts. He's really in a deep thinking situation where he either maybe he is sick, or there can be so many interpretations. Now, this was an example of a higher order question where you need to analyze the situation, think out of the box, related to your experience and understanding, and only then you can come up with your answer. We have our question number 2 over here, which says, how does the imagery of the creaky rocking chair that was mentioned in the paragraph, creaky rocking chair, contribute to the overall mood or atmosphere of the paragraph? Creaky means it's producing a creaky sound, just like a rocking chair does, right? Good answer. Now, rocking means the chair is moving back and forth. Now, what do you think about a creaky rocking chair? It means it is representing that the old man is living in a situation where he has this kind of furniture, he's alone, no time to fix it, he is all by himself, there's nobody beside him, etc. You can come up with your answers and your interpretations. Now, this last question over here. What is the significance or importance of the sun's descent in relation to the old man and the overall tone of the passage? What do you mean by the sun descent? The sun, beginning its descent, cast long shadows. It means the sun is about to set. And it is casting long shadows, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. It gives a very beautiful and a very good ending scene that when we are talking about it, it gives a sense of evening. So it means that there's no hope, the day is about to end, and this is what he will do the next day as well. So it means that he's in a constant routine. He's following the same routine, and the day is closing up, and this is how he's spending his evenings, because he's alone, he's all by himself. So the casting long shadows across the yard, this whole scene tells us about the situation and the mentality and the environment and the whole personality of the old man that we are talking about in the very first sentence. Now, these are not simple questions, rather they are introspective, they are higher order questions with lot of you have to pay attention, and only then you can answer them. So whenever you come up with these kind of questions, questions that are not regularly asked, it means that you need to reread the passage over and again till you reach the right answer. Now, here, if we move back to the student's learning outcome, it says, read with accurate pronunciation, appropriate pitch, and voice variation suitable for fictional and non-fictional text. So now we have this poem. It falls under the category of fiction. This is a poem about no poverty, and it's written by Jane Taylor. Now, let's read it. Now, students, you know that poems have a rhythm. They have patterns. You have to read them with a flow, with a rhythm, and this way you can also memorize it, and also you can make it interesting with your voice and with your narration. So let's read it together and see how we should be reading it. Now, I saw an old cottage of clay, and only of mud was the floor. It was all falling into decay, and the snow drifted in at the door. Now, you can see clay, decay, you can call them A and A. This is a rhyme scheme. Floor and door will become B and B. So you have to, when you're narrating the poem, you have to make it sound alike, and you have to connect the rhyme scheme together in order to tell the listeners that this is how the rhyme and the rhythm flows in the poem. Then you have the next stanza over here. Yet there a poor family dwelt in a hovel so dismal and rude, and though gnawing hunger they felt, they had not a morsel of food. So this is a very This represents a very sad and very bad situation. It means when you're reading this kind of stanza, you have to be very much empathetic and with full of sympathy so that it shows in your voice and in your narration. So this is a very sad representation of poverty that a family is facing. Let's move on to the next stanza. The children were crying for bread, and to their poor mother they'd run. Oh, give us some breakfast, they said. Alas, their poor mother had none. She viewed them with looks of despair. She said, and I'm sure it was true, it's not for myself that I care, but my poor little children, for you. Now, this is about hunger, and this is a mother's sacrifice that she made for her children so that they can eat. And so this is representing a very sad picture, and it's a very sad reality that is transformed into a poem. So you have to read it with correct voice, with correct articulation, so that it feels like you are actually feeling the words that you are articulating. So this way we can read any poem and be a very good reader of poems. Next. Let the wealthy and gay but see such a hovel as this, that in a poor cottage of clay they may know what true misery is, and what I may have to bestow I never will squander away, while many poor people I know around me are wretched as they. Now, again, this is a conclusion, a closure of the poem with a very good analysis by the poet. So we can see that this tells a very good message only if you're reading it with correct understanding, correct pronunciation. Only then you can transfer that sorrow and the pain in such poems that we read. So now let's read. Now that we have read the text, the poem itself is a text. Now that we have read it, how can we ask higher order questions? Let's see. Okay, you have to put your effort as well. You have to answer them. Number one, how does the poet use of language and imagery evoke empathy for the character? If you read the poem, it has a lot of different imagery, different kind of descriptions about the poor life that they are leading with no food, with houses made of clay. They can easily be destroyed with natural disasters and so on. So by portraying the whole scene and the emotions and different sounds that they are making out of hunger and for this condition, the poet also tells us about such imagery and also about the use of this sympathetic and very sad tone and language, and this conveys the message beautifully. You can solve the rest of these questions by yourself. Why do you think the poet chose to describe the cottage as made of clay and mud? And what effect does this imagery have? Then, can you think of a time when you felt hungry or deprived of something, and how did it make you feel? Now, this is a question that is relating to you. You have to answer it with your experience and use a very good formal language with, you can use some imagery to describe your answer. So all these questions, they are directly relating to you, they are making you understand, and they are affecting you in a way, and you have to be very much responsive towards this kind of poem with your personal experiences, with your understanding and your critical answers. So all these questions are of the nature of higher order questions. So it should be very much clear. Students who have joined us online, is everything clear to you? Good. You read the text and then you make up, or if they're already made, you need to answer those questions with higher order nature, and you have to answer them accordingly as it is asked. Here before you, you can see a simulation link. Students, you can open it later on. If you're watching on YouTube, right after you finish this lesson, open this one and you can come up, you can see that there are a lot of higher order questions. How do you formulate them and how do you answer them? All these things are mentioned in the video. Okay, so this is the worksheet. You will get it in the resources. What you're supposed to do is read this passage and then answer these higher order questions. In this way, your comprehension, your understanding will be increased and you can relate and totally get involved with the text that you're reading. This is the whole point and goal of our students' learning outcome. You read something, totally dive into that, understand it, and then respond. Okay, all these resources, the question bank, a presentation, this PowerPoint presentation before you, and this worksheet, students, it will be attached. Thank you so much for listening. So before we close our lecture, I hope that you have understood it completely. Yes. And students who have joined us online, is everything clear to you? Okay, that's nice. So in the next lecture, we will come up with another SLO. In this one, let me give you a quick revision. We talked about reading and then answering higher order questions, asking and answering them. And we also talked about reading any fictional or non-fictional text. When we are narrating them out loud, we have to do it in the correct pronunciation, with the correct variation and our full attention. So this way you can easily narrate any poem, you can easily narrate any short story, and you can be good speakers and good readers as well. So I would request you to read more as much as you can, read with interest, read high interest books so that you can be good readers and your comprehension increases as you do it. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you have got it now. I'll see you in the next video lesson. I'll see you on the other side of the video, and I'll meet you in the next video lesson, inshallah. Take care of yourselves. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.